Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means. It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop Black Friday week starting November 21st.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And I'm JT Timmons.
Oh, no fun name today?
You always say that. You always say that.
Well,
And
yesterday
then
when we filmed...
I got to keep things fresh.
The important thing is to know that JT Timmons is just a boring name. We just think it's just the dullest, most boring name. I mean, that seems to be what Madison is saying.
No.
What, no fun name? What, no cool name? Just a lousy, terrible, pathetic little name? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Well, yesterday we were filming, and I got
It was
Peaky.
2 days ago.
Oh, 2
we were
days
filming Delphi Murders.
Yes,
from
and
One
I
to
got
Wicked.
Yeah, and I got Peaky the Pekingese.
See?
So
That's
I'm like,
exciting. Not
that's great.
JT Timmons.
Because then I get the image of a Pekingese in my head, but
Got to keep it fresh, hon.
that's not fresh.
Got to keep it fresh.
That is lukewarm.
Got to keep them on their toes. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's fair.
Keep them on
That's
their
fair.
toes.
If you give it, if it gets to every time, they won't learn to appreciate it.
Well, then
Yeah.
comment down below if you want JT to give a name every single episode.
Oh, God.
Oh yeah,
Oh, God.
Ooh.
we can legally change his name. As a matter of fact, if we get enough Patreon,
EOS Rennie said, shame JT. They shame me all the time. It's okay.
Yeah.
All righty. What we
fine.
got going on before we get into some ghost mail?
All right. So first off, welcome y'all. If you are new here, we are the Ghost Podcast of our new little franchise of podcasts, I guess. Another thing is we recently started a true crime podcast, which is just JT and I, because Chris gets a little squeamish about the
I don't like true crime.
It's just not.
It's
and
not
that's
that I
fair.
don't like it. I actually do like true crime. I don't like spending time there.
Fair enough.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
dark.
It's a dark world. There's enough dark things. Like I accidentally bought 2 large boxes of true crime stuff.
I can't
And
wait. I can't wait.
I don't like it. I don't like having it. It bothers me. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It'll make its way to the podcast.
Listen,
it will.
I like living there. So
I know, yeah. And
I-
it's our rated R podcast.
Yeah.
And Madison says the F word. Yeah, if you want to hear Madison say the F word, go.
what?
But this one's family friendly.
It is.
Wait, this one's family friendly?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yikes.
Uh-oh.
E for everyone, baby. E for everyone.
Not E for everyone.
E for everyone, yes.
Okay. E for entities.
E for entity.
Yeah.
We're using video game ratings.
Yes. Well, anywho, so yeah, if you like the true crime stuff, and every once in a while a little paranormal, just because sometimes they
cross.
They
Absolutely.
cross, yeah.
We certainly cover true crime on this podcast often because there's spookies.
Mm-hmm.
There's spookies involved.
Exactly. So that's something that you enjoy. Go check out that podcast. It's called From One to Wicked, where we are rating these crimes on a scale, quite literally, from 1 to wicked, depending on 5 different categories. And you can hear more about that when you go listen to those episodes. So besides that, y'all, it's always a good time to be a Parajunkie over on Patreon.
Do it.
That is the best way to support us and keep us growing, keep us doing new things, going on these investigations, meeting new people. So,
Although really the best way to support us is to show up with big bags of money.
yeah.
So if you're not going to do Patreon, just show up with big bags of money. We accept big bags of money.
Just don't rob a bank to give that to us.
I don't care if you rob a bank to do that.
Debria put in a little disclaimer at the bottom.
Disclaimer.
We
Do
are not
not rob a
telling
bank.
you to rob a bank, but we're saying that we would not be opposed to receiving money, however you come across it.
Yeah.
Lord.
And so, speaking of which, let us thank some new Parajunkies that have recently joined us.
Yeah.
So we have Teresa Frazier, we've got Angela S., Brianna Bruns, Kayla Hauptman, Sarah Clark, Lindsay McClure, and Haley Yarborough. So thank y'all so much for joining us. And I hope that you are having fun over on the Patreon side of things.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, yeah.
With that, let's go ahead. And also, we are live streaming for the Parajunkies currently. And Mylea is a loyal true crime listener. And she mentioned in the comments, hell yeah. So
hell yeah.
Hell yeah about that true crime. So y'all know where to find us. But anyways, let's get into some ghost mail.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
I have a cue. Excuse me. You've got ghost mail.
Had to wind that one up.
Yeah, I was off in Hellier land.
Hellier.
I was still suing.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So,
which was what they called me in high school.
Sweet. Chris
Yes.
It's a better mispronunciation of my name.
Yes.
Because it was really saucy, sauce bomb, lots of sushi.
Yeah, love sushi.
Would it be sushi with sauce?
I've had soy sauce before.
My favorite was sauce bomb. I was like, that's a long
fine.
way to go to come up with a name for me.
Yes.
Sauce bomb.
Sauce bomb. So let's go ahead and start out. We're going to start out with a ghost mail from Meg Marie.
Cool.
And also, I should probably mention this because I never remember to do this at the beginning of these episodes. If you have a ghost story that you would like to send to us, you can send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. We read these all in order, and you should get a confirmation now that we received your ghost mail. It should be an immediate response so that you know we have it, and we will eventually work our way through. We're probably going to do some more ghost mails here shortly so that we can get through our log of mail, if you will. But let's start out. This one is titled "Hearing Grandmother's Guardian Angels?" Question mark. All right. Hello, my name is Megan. I live in Maine. I'm a big fan of your state, Megan.
Yeah,
Absolutely
same.
love it.
Love Maine.
Blueberries.
Blueberries and puffins.
Lobster.
Lobster.
And nice people.
Nice people. I hope you like my story. I have always had a weird feeling when I enter certain homes, hospitals, and other buildings. I always seemed like I was being watched or that there was a presence in a room I couldn't see. Once in a great while, I hear things. For example, movement in a house when no one is there, or when I'm focusing on a task, I can hear talking or conversations from far away. But when I notice, I will try to focus on the talking and it will disappear. I've gotten used to it that I no longer freak out about it. This is very important to my story. I have many stories I'm willing to tell at another time, and please send them in. But also, I don't know if this is important, but I had a friend in high school who told me she could see people's auras. When I asked what color she saw as mine, she told me that mine was clear. She sounded confused by the color, so I asked, "Is that a bad color?" Then she told me no, but she had never seen that color come from someone before. I know nothing about auras or how they work /mean. I just thought it was interesting. Anyway, back to the story at hand. I would like to preface that I am not religious, but my grandmother was. So I'm still confused by this experience. I should start with some weird things that happened before the main incident that I want to talk about. About 2 or 3 years ago, my 85-year-old grandmother at the time started telling my family that she was seeing my grandfather and a little girl in her home, which is an old farmhouse. My grandfather died back in 1998, and there has never been a little girl that has died in the house to our knowledge. My family lived in the home and the other farmhouse on the property since the 1890s. Both homes stood on the property before my family bought it, so there is a chance that a child died on the property, but we will never know. My grandmother had never talked about seeing anyone in the house before that point. My grandmother had lived by herself in the home since 2003, so when she started to talk about seeing and talking to my grandfather out of the blue, we all started to get a bad feeling. We were worried that her life might be coming to an end. She was becoming more confused, so my father checked on her every day. She would tell my mother and me a lot that she needed to leave the light in the stairway to one of the upstairs bedrooms on because the little girl liked to play up there at night. My mother thought that she was starting to mix up memories of me coming down to see her at night when I lived with my parents in the apartment in the back of the house when I was 2. The only thing that bothered me about this explanation was my parents and I slept in the upstairs bedrooms on the other side of the house, nowhere near the stairs she was talking about almost 20 years later. When I asked her about me coming down the stairs to watch the movies with her at night back in 2002, when I was 2, she was able to tell me the correct staircase I would have gone down to get to the living room. That creeped me out further. When she talked about her talking and seeing my husband, my grandfather, she would tell my aunts about a conversation she had with him about things that were happening in the present. My family would brush them off and say she must be confused. In early June 2021, she became sick and was in a hospital for a week. She was later transferred to her nursing home for almost a month. When she got better, they sent her home that July. My family decided that it was not safe to leave her home alone, so we moved in with my aunt. Both my aunts would take care of her during the day because they are both retired. At night, my brother and I would watch her. I had just graduated college and my brother had just graduated high school, so we took up the night shift to watch her. One night on week 2 of the night shift at my aunt's house, I was sitting in my grandmother's bedroom at the foot of her bed on my computer. At this point, she had calmed down and was sleeping. The room is small and overall the house is pretty small, so I could hear very little things that happen in the house at that hour. At about midnight, the TV was on in the room with its volume on very low, almost a whisper. I started to hear a conversation between a man and a woman. Like when I explained earlier, it was only when I was not focused on the outside world, but when I was not focused. It was louder than I had ever experienced before. I could hear someone talking in the living room or kitchen. I could not make out what they were saying like normal, but it was loud enough for me to tell they were having a pleasant but firm conversation, like if they were discussing something. It freaked me out a bit, so I got up the first time and got into the living room and kitchen area to check it out. There was no one there, and when I looked outside at the front of the house, there weren't even any lights on at the neighbors. I returned to the bedroom. I didn't notice that on the TV there was a man and a woman talking at that point. I chalked it up to being the TV being louder than I'd thought. I muted it and went back to my computer. About an hour later, I heard the conversations again just as loud as before. This time it sounded important. I freaked out again and turned the sound back on the TV. I would hear it a few more times throughout the night, but this time my aunt woke up that morning. I completely forgot about it. The next day, when I was back to see my grandmother during the day, she told me that my grandfather had come to see her and he sat in the chair next to her bed. She had mentioned that one of her sisters had come to see her. Both of her sisters were dead at this point. This made me remember the voices I had heard the night before. It kind of scared me a little, not gonna lie, because I have always made excuses for the sounds and talking I had heard throughout my life. I tried to shake it off and go on with my life. A week later, I was doing the night shift at my grandmother's bedside when I heard voices again. They sounded the same as the ones I had heard the week prior. The only difference was they were having a calm conversation instead. I heard it at least 3 different times throughout the night. That morning, I decided to tell my aunt about the voices. My aunt got excited when I told her, and she said that she had heard the voices of a man and a woman the second night my grandmother had started living there. She figured that it must have come from outside the house. When I told her that it sounded like it was coming from inside the house, she got freaked out. My aunt has never heard voices in that house before or since. After my grandmother went to live in another nursing home because she started to decline too much for us to take care of her on our own, my aunt and I told the family about the voices we had heard. My mother asked if we were hearing her guardian angels. My mother is religious. My aunt scoffed because she didn't believe in anything like that, but I didn't know. My grandmother died later that December. To this day, we have never heard anything in my aunt's house since. Thank you for hearing my story. It is a common one in my family to talk about when it comes to ghosts or spooky things in general. I have other ghost stories from my other side of the family, like me seeing my other grandmother's dead sister when I was 3, or their old spooky house on the river, as well as more than from the house my grandmother and now my parents, brother, and I live in. Sadly, no sighting of the little girl lately, though. If you guys are interested in any other sort of stories, let me know. Also, stay spooky, y'all.
Nice. Yeah, she actually sent another one in recently, so we'll be reading that in a few weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, everybody's got a different opinion on this, but I wouldn't necessarily call that like a guardian angel sort of situation.
I don't think so. I wouldn't put it in the guardian angel category.
I would say it's probably more along the lines of it was your grandfather and her sisters, and because she was going to be passing soon, they were making themselves present.
This suggestion that the spiritual energy kind of reaches out at the end of life, that the knowledge of impending death kind of causes a light to start shining. Countless people will report that loved ones come to them on their deathbed or near-death experiences. Oftentimes people will come back and say that they had seen people of their life. I am intrigued by the little girl.
I am too.
And there is a notion that the little girl might have been your grandmother.
Ooh,
might have
interesting.
been, a determination of a former self. Because we've talked about this before. You can haunt yourself. You can, especially if you're in a building that you spent your whole life in. And I don't know if she was the family member that grew up in the house or not, but knowing that there are opportunities for a spirit, even like one of her sisters, to be appearing in a form that is more movable, enjoyable. Ghosts do not have to come back looking like the moment they died. Mm-hmm. They can come back looking in any form that they really relate to. And so they can be seen as young, as old. We've heard stories of children who have died, but the ghosts that people encountered were actually older than the child who died. And we think that that's a matter of perspective for the spirit. The spirit is presenting itself in this fashion or this way. So it may not be a child who died on the property. It may be an adult who died on the property who relates to the property through its experiences when it was young.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. I don't think there's anything off about it. It makes sense why, after she passed that you guys haven't heard it since.
Right.
Because more than likely it was just her comfort people, if you will.
They were there to guide that transition.
The thing that's kind of stumping me is the clear aura sense, because I don't personally see auras on people, but it makes me wonder, first off, what that looked like to your friend that determined clear. But
so I've had encounters with aura readers and things like that. And one time I got a reading and the person was hyper alarmed because they claimed that I had holes in my aura.
Oh no.
And I was like, so like black spots is what I asked. And their answer was no, clear. I can see through your aura in patches.
Like some cheese.
Right. You've got holes in your aura, and it's like interesting. And I wonder if that your aura isn't completely, transparent, because the aura reader suggested that that's ways for spirits to kind of latch on. Mm-hmm. Is there, your aura is a shield between you and the, veil.
Were you religious at the time?
Mm-mm.
I just figured.
I've never been particularly religious.
Figured it might be a holy aura.
Boom.
Boo.
We'll be taking JT out back and smacking him around a bit. So.
Yeah. Good riddance. Anyways, Your Serenity said, "What? Chris, stop eating Swiss cheese."
Nice.
I will never stop eating Swiss cheese.
Yes.
I love Swiss cheese.
I wish I had more of an answer for that.
I'm not a aura expert either. Although I did just recently purchase a lens. I don't know if those of you who are listening are familiar with the Dysonian goggles that we have. I just purchased a lens that you can put on your phone so that you can record with the specially treated dyed glass that is supposed to be about aura, reading aura, seeing energy waves and energy patterns that you can't see with the naked eye. So maybe we'll bring it in and point it at each other for long periods of time.
See what happens. All right. But cool. Thank you, Megan. We appreciate you sending this in.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I'd like to say EO Serenity appreciates my humor. So
Don't encourage him.
Don't.
Do it.
It does not
Yikes.
get better.
Yes. But our next one is from Dali. And so this one says, "Hi, Chris, Madison, and JT. You are my 3 favorite people to listen to while doing the job.
Yay.
I love logging. I don't know if that was a typo or if you just like cutting down trees in the mountains of Utah. I mean, I wouldn't blame it, but
Logging?
logging.
You spend time outdoors in the woods.
No, logging in the mountains of Utah.
Yeah.
She's
awesome.
a logger.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. But ever since I found your podcast, you've opened my mind to the possibilities of what's out there. I'm just waiting for a Bigfoot to pop out or aliens to zoom past my head while being on some of the highest peaks in my state. LOL. My name is Dali Defa. My last name is Defa. My last name is pronounced Defa. So hey, Faye Daddy over here. LOL. Anyways, I wanted to send in a couple videos that my cousin showed me from his second home that he is fixing up that used to be his grandparents.
Okay, I'll download them.
You'll notice it almost looks like a swarm of flies moving across the screen.
Lord.
I just thought this was crazy that both cameras caught this. So to me, ruled out a lot of conspiracy. One camera in the upstairs and the other in the basement. As soon as I seen the videos, I knew exactly who I wanted to send them to and get your reactions and thoughts. I've been trying to catch up on every episode, binge listening to 8 episodes a day.
Whoa. That's a lot.
8 a day? Dope.
Wow.
I don't even listen to myself that much.
You're getting your daily dose, if
Yes,
you will.
indeed.
And have finally decided it's time to take a step up in this world and become a parajunkie.
Huzzah.
Nice.
Yes. Love what you guys do and look forward to catching some live streams. I am Parajunkie proud. Keep up the great work and never stop giving us our ghost heroin.
Nice.
You.
Paying attention, I see.
Yes. Yours truly, Dali DeFay. P.S. I live near Skinwalker Ranch and would love to hear you guys do a deep dive on that
We lost the
sometime.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Arnar.
It's okay. Keep moving.
Okay. Well, we are ready for the videos. If you, okay. Well, I have them downloaded anyways.
Nice.
So this is one of them.
Oh.
It's really weird. It's like a giant blob that moves through the screen. So it's like kind of creeping across.
Looks like it's crawling on the ceiling.
Yeah, and then this is the basement one. Yeah. Well, and that one's even creepier because it's so shadowy in the beginning.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting. Go to your happy place for a happy price with Priceline's Black Friday sale. Save now and travel later with our best deals of the year.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give the fan favorite everywhere belt bag, the real gift is... And when the ultra soothing rest feel slides are the gift, you're really giving them... This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give little luxuries that go beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Like, it's really bizarre. So basically, with that second one, it looks like almost like there's just a dark shadow in the corner of the basement, but then it moves. The shadow literally
Goes across the screen.
Yeah, and both times it goes across the top of the room, which is super interesting. I'm trying to see if I can get like a better look if there's any kind of like definition to the shadow or if it's just kind of a moving black mass. Because what it reminds me a lot of is that one photo we did on the GhostCon on camera where it was just
the black thing that was coming.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something like that. And I feel like it's more so, it could be just some type of energy sucking spirit, if you will. I guess that's a term for it. It's a blob. It's a moving black blob.
It is fascinating. And it's interesting that in both instances, it's moving from camera left to camera right. In both instances, it is taking up the upper, because if I'd seen it in one, I would be like, maybe there's a bug on the camera crawling, and it's just so close that the camera's not able to do any kind of focusing on it, but it is completely translucent, which means you can see through it. If it were a bug, it seems like at some point the density of the bug would be thick enough to, to block out the visual. It is moving in an unnerving pattern. So
it's like inching across.
Yeah, it does feel like it's just crawling across.
Almost like a little like millipede or something.
Right.
Like it's like
it's weird. It's very strange, and I would put it on the list of heebie-jeebie causing things.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because I don't really know the history of the property, but there is a number of reasons why those types of orbs is probably the better catch-all term for it, is a form of an orb. It could just be a mass of negative energy. It's sucking negative energy out of the space, things like that.
But it definitely seemed to have a place to go. It was heading somewhere. So, I don't know.
It's still creepy. Yeah, I'm glad. I don't think it's flies. Now, granted, I can't, it's a blink camera, so, it's not going to have the highest of quality. But
no, I wouldn't think that it was like a swarm of anything because it's controlled movement. The thing about a swarm is it would have a undulation to it because generally flies or any flying bug that works in a swarm are avoiding hitting each other. And in doing so, they create a kind of undulation as they move. And that's kind of how you can tell that because unlike birds, because birds can kind of navigate in a way that moves them all together, bugs are hyper inside their little thing, and it creates kind of a weird pattern of movement that generally you're like, oh, I can see that that's a swarm of things versus that definitely seems like a very solid piece, moving across in one piece.
Yeah, I would have been hyper concerned if it was a swarm of flies on a number of levels.
That's true. You don't want a swarm of flies moving around, especially thick enough to be detected. Because that's another thing. When if it's like gnats or fruit flies or small flies, you probably wouldn't detect it right away. Not with the quality of camera that Blink provides. No shade to Blink, by the way, but we're not trying to diss Blink for their crappy cameras. Not to say they have crappy cameras, but they're
in too deep there.
Right. But I do think it's definitely something interesting. And it's.
We would like to hear, are there any experiences there? Is anybody having any sensations of dread or sensations of something going on? Are there any stories of other phenomena? Just seeing this, for all we know, it was just passing through the house on its way to Pittsburgh. We don't know. So if you have more information on the kinds of things that this house might be experiencing, then we can start to wonder what type of entity might leave this mark. But it is interesting that it is on two different cameras in the same house. Right.
Well, because like with Waverly Hills, they've got the black mass that consume. The crawler they like to call it, which is a bizarre name for it. It's just like a wall of darkness that consumes you for a bit, and it's disorienting. So if anybody in the house has had like an experience of that nature or things like that, we can start kind of categorizing a little bit more.
Even night terrors, sleep paralysis, paranoia, just basic paranoia. Those kinds of things are all kind of indicators too, and that helps us kind of figure out, is this an entity that is utilizing the energy in the house to present itself, or again, is it passing through?
Right. So thank you, Dally.
That's very cool, by the way.
Very cool. And we will we will
also anybody who has any type of physical evidence, we love looking at it. Photos, videos, EVPs, anything that you have that you think is just strange or odd or bizarre. We love looking at them. They are, part and parcel to being paranormal investigators, is just staring at things that other people are like, isn't this weird? And we're all like, yeah, that's weird.
That is
so
weird.
Please share with us.
Yep. So thank you, Dally. And yeah, we will definitely do an episode about Skinwalker Ranch here eventually, because enough people enjoy Skinwalkers.
That's true. Well, and Skinwalker Ranch is actually it's
like a mecca of.
I was about to say its name is a little more alarming because they call it Skinwalker Ranch, but the truth of the matter is it's probably more UFO related than
I would
anything
agree with
else.
that. Yeah.
And even more than that, it's more like electromagnetic field disturbances stuff. So yeah, we should do an episode on Skinwalker Ranch.
I agree. But awesome. So our next one comes from Courtney Heinrichs. Yes. So
Parajunkie.
Mm-hmm.
Whoop, whoop.
And
Parajunkie for a while now.
Yes. Our Mothman has been put somewhere amongst the set.
In the chest.
Yes. Okay. Let me grab Mothman for this one.
Yeah, Mothman's good. Yeah. You don't need him.
We got a custom-made Mothman.
Thank you, Courtney. She sent it in. What was that, last week or the week before?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's so cute.
Mothman.
You should sell those. Those are dope.
That's what I said. I was like, the holidays are coming up. So.
That's true.
But Courtney said, "Hey, Maddie, JT, and Chris. I'm loving the new space and we'll be sending a little... this, by the way, this is sent in a while ago. So I will be sending in a little handmade gift once it's made. Well, here it is. But yeah, so keep up the good work. As you may recall, I have had 2 prophetic dreams of 2 separate people in my life being pregnant. I remember that. Mm-hmm. My question for you is, do you think it could be possibly passed down in my bloodline? Here's a little backstory that I will preface with, which is that this may not even be prophetic, but only time will tell. I have 3 children, Kenzie, soon to be 12 years old, Curran, 7 years old, and Luna, 6 years old. Everyone has always said that Luna is my mini-me in all aspects, appearance, attitude, personality, etc. Yesterday, she had a dream that her aunt, my sister-in-law, had a 4th child. Obviously, this is intriguing to the whole family, as we are all aware of my experiences. So, of course, I texted my sister-in-law asking her if she were, in fact, pregnant. I kid you not, she immediately messaged me back stating that her cycle was off and not less than 5 minutes ago was talking to her husband about the possibility of being pregnant with an oopsie baby.
An oops, baby.
Like I said, only time will tell, and I will keep you posted if she does, in fact, become pregnant. But I just had to share the story with you. Yeah, well, definitely by now, if she is, we'd know. So let us know, Courtney. Yeah, she's not in this live stream, but we'll message her and get the update on that.
We'll find out.
But side note, I've watched both of the Waverly Hills live and edited versions twice, and I feel there's a good story there. When you did the Essies with the Ghost Brothers and Juwan got touched, I took a screenshot and included the picture, but it almost looks like a shadow behind him. You can see his shadow and then another one behind his to the left. Now, I don't know if that's Megan's shadow or the ghost, but it's pretty clear to me there's a second shadow. Then when Dalen does it, he says, "I got kids." It sounds like the ghost.
That.
It sounds like the ghost is talking about the kid ghosts that are there.
Right.
Then Sushi does it. So there
Sushi's
you go.
in studio.
Sushi's in studio.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy that we're reading this and he's in studio. That's nuts.
I know. Bro, that was so, and this is literally says, bro, that was so wild.
Yeah.
The spirits were so responsive to them. Anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful day and that Chris's trip goes well. So I don't remember what trip that was, but
It's probably the New York trip.
Probably. But
it went well.
It went well.
But that's okay though, y'all.
Yeah, it might have been the Alaska trip. That went well too.
Yes.
Depends
you made it back, so obviously.
Yeah, I'm here. So.
Yeah. But all right, so this is the photo. Let me turn up the brightness because it's kind of dark. But so behind Juwan. Oh, I think maybe it's.
Oh. Yeah.
What do you see?
So yes, it is a screenshot from our
live stream.
Our live stream, and there does seem to be kind of a shadowy,
right?
And it's hard to tell is the problem, because there's a lot going on in the scene. Because there's a part that's like, well, could it be stain on the wall? Because the walls are very stained, and but if you were watching it and noticed it, you would know if it were a stain on the wall because it would still be there no matter what.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because it's also because it was on the live stream, and y'all know the Wi-Fi was a situation in that building.
We were having a time.
Yeah, so it's a little grainy. And I'm trying to decipher that as well. I don't think if it is a person shadow, I don't think that would be Megan's shadow.
No.
Because Megan's shadow, because the light was coming this way, I think Megan's shadow would have been more diagonal.
Wasn't she sitting on the floor at that point?
I think this was Megan. That looks like
Megan's
shoes.
in the chair.
Oh, she's in the chair right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm getting it up for the Parajunkies right now.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. And honestly, we should go back to that part of the live stream and watch it.
We probably should.
And see if
I have not revisited any of the video that we had taken, so it's probably worth a watch through just to see if there are things that we missed.
Right.
Or things that, because I could probably use a refresher on that whole evening, to be honest.
I would agree with that. And maybe, JT, you could throw this in some kind of like Photoshop or something and see if you can pull anything out of it.
Some kind of Photoshop.
Well, I don't know what you do with it. But anyways.
Actually, a Lightroom situation, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Photoshop is all trying to fake it.
Sure. Fair enough.
Well, you can still do all the editing tools, bringing the contrast up, bringing the lights up, brightening it, darkening it.
Well, you could do some fancy technology thing to it and see if you can pull
Give
anything.
us a photo negative.
Heard that.
And then negative that.
But yeah, I think there definitely could be something interesting out of that. And to answer your previous question, Courtney, absolutely. I think that ability can be passed down through generations. And that's a very common occurrence with especially women. I would say like those types of abilities tend to get passed down through the more maternal side of the bloodline. So if you have that ability, totally makes sense that your daughter would also have that ability. And if she was correct, very interesting. And I'm sure she's going to remember that forever and be like, remember that last time that I got that right? And she should, because I think that's an excellent story. But yeah, let us know if your sister is pregnant, because even if it is an oopsies baby. But
right. No, it's fascinating. Recently I started doing a lot of research on constructs and concepts of prophetic vision. And one of the things that I kind of started honing in on was the notion of dark matter and dark energy. The vast majority of space is actually dark matter. What we consider to be reality and existence and material makes up like 20% of the universe. The rest is dark matter, and we don't really have a good explanation for it. And one of the things that I was thinking was, so many people subscribe to the belief of multiple universes, right? The idea that every choice you make splinters into a new reality, and those realities are based on the difference of choices, right? What I was thinking was, it's very possible that there is only one reality. All other realities are burned to allow this reality to maintain. The fuel of reality are other realities. But when they burn, that means every potential burns up with it. And I think some people might be able to catch glimpses of the fire. They might catch glimpses. And so if you think about like people who have prophecies, especially people who get it wrong, they may just be seeing other realities, other splinters that are burning away to fuel this existence, because our existence has to be fueled by something. Keeping all of this matter present has to be something. And we know that dark energy, which is akin to dark matter, is what expands the universe. It's what builds onto the time that we exist. So I'm thinking that paranormal phenomenon might actually be our ability to see the embers of other realities burning up.
It's blunt.
Whoa, dude. Whoa. Dude. Pass the chips, man.
Wow. Well, so yeah. Well, there you go. You got Chris all philosophical now.
Yeah.
So
No, that's not hard.
No, that's not.
That's not hard.
You just need that.
Into the philosophical void he goes. Meow. But awesome. Yeah, thank you, Courtney, for sending that in.
Yeah.
So our next one comes from Lauren Beach. This says, "Hi, y'all. My name is Lauren, and I've been a big fan of the podcast the past couple months and have binge listened to it for weeks now."
Woo!
Thank you, Lauren. I have always been a believer in the paranormal, but there is still so much about the ghost world that I have yet to understand. All of us feel that way.
Welcome.
And it never stops feeling that way. So
Oftentimes it gets worse and worse.
yeah,
The more we know, the more we're like, I don't know what's going on.
I'm getting existential, but yeah, that's exactly how it feels. I have yet to understand. That's why I love listening to the podcast so much. For reference on this story, I was about 10 years old at the time and readily saw ghosts or spirits in my everyday life. Encounters with demons, spirits that could touch me, and your everyday friendly ghost. My parents had just finalized their divorce, so I would be at my mom's house for a week, then my dad's for a week. My dad was very abusive and a terrible negative person. He had ill intent in almost everything he did or said to anyone. I believe this drew in negative entities. I noticed that when I was at my dad's house, I had far more negative encounters with spirits than I did when I was not with him. After a particularly bad day with him full of fighting, I noticed at night there was a tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my room.
Was he wearing a hat?
Mm-hmm. Was he wearing a hat? The figure was so tall that it had to bend its neck to the side, making it look like it had a snap neck, and it had a very negative, but not evil, feeling to it.
I think we have a button for this. I don't know. Do we? Oh, hell no. We do. Okay.
So we're talking about a bent neck man.
Yeah. Or how we like to call it, the broke neck.
Broke neck man.
Yeah. But now, at this point, I was so comfortable with spirits, I told it out loud, if you are not a positive spirit, you need to leave. It did not even move. Jeez. So I said, if you're going to stay here, you will not make a noise, you will not wake me up, and you do not have permission to touch me. The entity did not say anything to me, which I found strange, considering the fact that normally if a spirit was aware I could see them, they would try and talk to me. The spirit stayed in my room in the corner every night for the rest of that week. At night, when I was not asleep and the entity was there, I found myself talking to it like I would a friend. Seeing as, sounds like Insidious.
Yeah.
Don't feed the ghosts.
Don't feed the ghosts. I found myself talking to it, and I would find comfort in the spirit and say things like, I wish he, my dad, could just feel like the pain that he causes me. I wish he would have the same things happen to him so he would leave me alone. Eventually, only when I was at his house, I started waking up at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. every night to the entity standing at the foot of my bed, leaning over me. I was not scared because I knew I had power over it. I would simply tell it to get back in the corner or leave, then roll over and go back to sleep. After a couple weeks, I kept waking up between 3 and 4 a.m., but it would be the entity grabbing me or making noises so loud it would wake me up. I started waking up with bruises and occasionally scratches. That's when I began contemplating hurting my dad. I knew where he kept the knives in the house, even though he had tried to hide them, so I knew I could defend myself if he were to ever try and hurt me more than hitting or shoving. I remember one night I woke up to the entity standing back in the corner, and I got up and went to find a knife. I took it into his room and stood over him while he slept. This part really confuses me to this day because I am and always have been someone who would never wish someone pain, much less have murderous intent. I remember it was like I had no control over my body, and it was like my actions were being guided by something else. And let's not forget, I was only 10 years old. I don't know just how long I stood over him with the knife, battling my body and the urge to take his life, but I remember breaking down into tears and dropping the knife on the floor before going back to my room and, once again, being greeted by the entity in the corner. This time, the spirit didn't have its usually negative, angry feeling to it. It seemed almost comforting and sad. I remember laying back, facing the spirit in the corner and crying. I went to sleep crying and woke back up to the spirit crouched down beside my bed with its hand on my arm. The feeling of calm was so relieving that it made me want to cry more. I never saw the entity again, but a few weeks later, my dad and I got into one of the biggest fights we ever had, resulting in him dragging me out of the shower and throwing me to the ground. I had covered my face in fear he would hit me, but I heard him wheeze and hit the wall forcefully. When I looked up, he looked terrified and ran out of the room, claiming something grabbed his throat and shoved him against the wall. After that, I decided I had enough of being around him, so I refused to see him again. A few months of no contact with him, he called me out of nowhere, telling me about how he moved into a house he had built about an hour away, and said how just after he moved, he started waking up at 3 a.m. every night. He said he would wake up with deep bleeding scratches and dark bruises. He sent many pictures of bruises all over him that looked like large fingerprints. He recalled that one day he was in the laundry room washing clothes and the door to the room slammed shut and locked itself. When he tried to open it, it wouldn't budge. So he put his body weight into it, trying to open it, but it felt like someone was doing the same thing on the other side, trying to keep him in the room. He said that when he finally got it open, something lifted him in the air and slammed him to the ground, knocking the wind out of him. It then felt like someone grabbed him by the ankles and pulled him several feet out of the laundry room before letting him go. During this phone call, my dad and I had him recounting his experience. He claimed I cursed him and sent demons to torment and harm him. I did no such thing that I'm aware of. I had never thought that my actions and intentions of harming my dad could be caused by the entity in my room. But after listening to the podcast and hearing Chris say a demon's ultimate goal is to try and get you to do evil, like harming others, I'm not so sure. I also always believed that whatever was in my room took pity on me and my situation and therefore hurt him after I was out of the picture. But there's really no way of knowing if those actions were caused by the entity or possibly another spirit or a guard or a guide protecting me. I would love to hear y'all's opinion on this situation, and thanks so much for taking the time to read other people's stories. Love the podcast. Please don't stop making it.
Dang.
Wow.
That's such an intense story.
That is an incredibly intense story.
And one of the first things that I'd like to point out is there's a good chance that your father's negative behavior was because of a presence of the spirit in his life, that he may have been under the influence of a dark spirit that ruled his behavior, and you became secondary target of the same spirit, the same entity. Because conceptually, once the spirit has control and your father is acting out, or a person is acting out the dark intentions of a dark spirit, then the ideal situation for that spirit is to get another, is to contaminate or to influence another. The thing I find interesting, though, is you definitely asked for your father to experience the kind of terror that you felt at his hands. You asked that he be abused in the way that you were abused, and it seems like that's what's happening.
Right.
So there's multiple layers of conversation to be had about what this presence is, what this entity is. It presents like a demon, absolutely. Again, we always have to go through this kind of disclaimer system of, we use the word demon as a blanket term for a negative spirit that is, one way or another easier to identify by the word demon. However, this is just a dark entity, dark force that does cause people to have malevolent sensation, feelings, ideations. The fact that you were succumbing to them, but resisted, that's a big achievement. If you are under the influence of such a dark and sinister ideology and you're able to resist it, there is room for the spirit to alter its approach to you. Mm-hmm. You could have just been another one of its victims, but by maintaining yourself and your preservation, you may have changed its mode. It may have said, oh, this is not the one. She is not the one I need to be tormenting. He is. So there's room for conversation, and that's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of things going on, and it's fascinating. Very large shadow entities definitely fall into the category because, again, ideally, a demon wants to be oppressive. It wants to fill space. It wants to seem gigantic. It could have been a very small entity that was just appearing very large. And it's feeding off of all this negativity between you and your father, all this negativity coming off of your father. All of that stuff does start to raise questions of, at what point did your father start down a dark path? What was it that influenced him to behave this way? Is it generational? Is it some familial thing? So yeah, in listening to the story and trying to analyze its components, it's a solid narrative. The narrative of a child who is able to maintain themselves in the presence of great temptation, because the temptation is you're being mistreated, and it would be just to cause harm to the person mistreating you. That's an easy get for a demon or a dark force to suggest you deserve to hurt this person, and thereby changing it. So like if we went sort of in the pseudo-Christian belief of demons, all demons were fallen angels. This sounds like a Grigori, a watcher, a spirit that watches people, and its presence being dark causes people to behave darkly. If that is the case, then you might have inspired something deep inside this entity that recognizes divinity and recognizes good and is able to acknowledge that you withstood the temptation and the person who needs to be punished was your father. That's a long walk. That's a lot of what ifs and a lot of suppositions, but it is the kind of thing that you get when you listen to the story.
Right. Yeah, I think there is a lot to unpack there. It's I know that you said that there was moments where you felt calm from this entity, but I feel like that is a trap, to be honest. Yeah. Because if I also would encourage you to go listen to our episode with our friend who's the demonologist, Kyle Cobb, because he mentioned something in that episode that was very interesting on the theory of demonic entities, where these entities, demonic possession isn't necessarily the way Hollywood depicts it. Right. It's these entities putting thoughts into your mind and making you think those are your own thoughts. And I feel like that is what happened here.
It's like a Horcrux.
Exactly. And so I think that this entity was fueling you with these thoughts of like, this is how you handle these situations. It's trying to do its bidding through you. Right. And then because you were able to fight that intrusive thought, to put it one way, I guess, it felt like it needed to regain your trust in some manner. And because almost immediately, from the way you described it, almost immediately after that incident where you had the knife over your father and stuff like that, this entity started being friendly towards you instead of almost domineering and trying to elicit
Unfortunately,
fear
it sounds like the classic deal with the devil.
Right.
The devil will give you exactly what you ask for, but never what you want. It's a dangerous game of you've asked a darkness for a favor and the favor is now being delivered. But what was the cost?
Exactly. So I'm trying to process all of that information in my mind.
And I think as time goes on, we will probably have more to say on the subject. And if you have updates, please, let us know and send in updates. Or if you have more insights, it will help us because, again, it's interesting that it followed your father to a new location. That brings about a whole series of questions as to what is the entity attached to. It seems like it's attached to your dad.
I would agree with that.
And you were just in the collateral damage area
Right.
for that. And, a lot of that is because your dad exhibits behaviors of a person who is under that influence, under dark influence.
And that is also not to say he could just be a piece of garbage, but
very true. And it's possible. And that's another thing is which came first, being a piece of garbage or the darkness.
Yeah.
Because being a piece of garbage might be the reason why the darkness showed up.
Exactly.
It's not that the darkness came and then and it influenced your father to become a piece of garbage. It's possible that the piece of garbage was like the darkness, like, oh, that's my people.
Yeah.
And show up and be like, hey, let's grab a beer. So yeah, there's a lot of and because the story is so personal and so dynamic, we're getting the blush of it.
Right.
We're skimming the peaks of your story, and I'm sure there are depths that we need to probably take into consideration.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And my last thought about this, just because of the fact that once you cut contact with your dad, the entity really full throttle went after it. It could have been because of all these situations that the demon felt ownership over you. It felt like it had some type of full connection to you, that it needed to react in the way that it did to get you back. Like if I do her what she asked for, I can have her back.
Yep. Or fulfilling a unspoken promise is another big thing. If the spirit delivers on what you wanted, then your connection is, reinstated in a lot of ways. It's such an interesting conversation piece, really, because there's lots of ways to go about what's happening. What is it? Because it's very possible that you are just stronger than it. Mm-hmm. And that puts it in a position of needing to prove its strength. And if it can't prove its strength by manipulating or harming you, it will take it out on somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for sending that, Lauren. That was very vulnerable of you, and a very fascinating story on a number of levels. So like Chris said, if you have any updates, if you've had any weird experiences that you think are associated with this same entity that you've had in recent times, I think that would be very interesting and would add to the conversation. Anyways, sorry, my phone just flew at Chris.
It's quite all right.
But anyways, so thank y'all so much for sending in your ghost mail. And like we said at the beginning, if y'all have a story that you would like for us to read or try to dig into in some capacity, definitely send us your stories, your photos, your videos, all that good stuff to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. But I am getting the cue that we have to wrap up. So thank you guys again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all.